Okay, well, we are now at the most important part of the annual public meeting, which is a time for your questions. If you do have a question, may I invite you to stand up, please, and one of our team members will run a mic to you. And if you could introduce yourself and where you're from, that would be great. So over to you. And I'm serious, if you don't ask a question, I'll ask you one. So. While we're awkwardly pausing and waiting for a question, I want to acknowledge that we have some alumni BC Safety Authority employees in the audience, which is incredibly near and dear to my heart, that people would actually take the time out of their wonderful retirement in the South Interior to come to an annual public meeting. And I know they're going to have observations too about how much the organization has changed or stayed the same since they retired. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Catherine.
Richard.
Richard Frick, Safety Officer in Penticton. Recently we had a presentation on computer learning, and I was wondering if you could speak to the group a little bit about how we're going to be using some computer learning to further some of the inspections that we're going to be doing.
Great, okay, so I think probably the person who's best able to answer machine learning, which is a data analytics question, is Ob, who is in the audience. And maybe you can describe maybe a specific example too around propane might be interesting about machine learning.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Richard, for your question. The BC Safety Authority is a provincial organization, and I just learned that our province is more than 1 million square kilometers. We can't be everywhere all the time, so we really make an effort of how can we collect as much information as possible and find the patterns and make sure we visit those places that need our attention most. Or visit those places that we know very little about and we feel we can learn about more. We do that by asking our people. And we also do that by analyzing those mountains of data that we collect or that we can access from other organizations. And finding those patterns in the data is something we have learned over the last years, that computers are much better at that than human beings are. So we're using those computers to just grind through those data, find that patterns, and come to a list of recommendations of where safety officers should be spending some time to optimize safety. We then look at how good are those computer predictions actually working. Are we finding high hazard levels? So in some cases where we have lots of data, like in electrical installation, that is a fantastic way to go, because it's almost impossible to do that as a human being. We're using the machines for that. In other situations, we actually know very little because we haven't done that many inspections. In that case, we look at our people and we come to an approach of how we can best investigate that new situation, learn more about. And once we have more data, we switch it back over to the machines. The machines are supervised though. We look at that on a daily basis to make sure that those predictions actually make sense. I hope that helps you a little bit, Richard.
Well, one thing I'll just add. Yeah, maybe I can add to that, which is that we are trying to adapt photo recognition, not just your facial recognition that we know already Facebook frighteningly has, but we're actually going to use that to take photos of assets like a very large propane storage vessel and have the computer be able to detect corrosion, lack of a relief valve, lack of a plinth that it's sitting on, a concrete platform, whether there's vegetation that's encroaching, a number of different visual hazards. And to be able to process 20 to 50,000 vessels through some kind of software photo recognition is going to significantly enhance our ability to get to the highest hazards first. So that's OB's team. He's busy working on that. They have committed to me that's going to be sometime at the end of Q2 or Q3, and that could have a significant impact on how we assess very large volumes of assets. Fair to say?
I think that's a fair say. And what I would like to emphasize is the computers do the pre-work. In the end, focusing on a specific installation, we still believe that requires our very knowledgeable employees, but we can't be everywhere all the time. The computer really helps us find the priorities where we are most needed.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Richard. Any other questions from the audience? Bonnie.
Good morning, everybody. Had to look at the time first. As a retired BCSA employee and on the administrative side of things, one of the things I'm most interested in is the enhancements to the portal system. Myself and my colleagues have in the past been involved in the development, the testing of that site, and I'm most interested in how that portal system has advanced, what sort of changes have taken place in it. Sadly, as I've been retired for 5 years, I haven't really gone to the site to look. Sorry. But that's sort of where I'm more interested in, really.
Great. Okay, thank you very much for that question. You would be pleasantly surprised to see the difference. In fact, probably shocked. So maybe Brian Simmers, you can describe what is coming to a portal near you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're all familiar with the portal My Connection, or most of us are, and that is the portal that you would have had experience with. So we took a different approach. And over the last 2 years, we've built up a development team, and we've done extensive consultations with clients, and we are building in a very agile manner. We're using that approach, a portal that meets the biggest pain points of our clients. And we own the code itself, and we are able to make changes, and we've invested in an infrastructure that allows us to adapt on a weekly or a daily or a monthly basis. So we really are going to build this with a partnership of our clients, and we're going to continue to enhance it and improve it. So big differences are you can access it on your phone. You can be on a site and make a declaration against a permit. You can take out a permit on your phone. And in consultation with clients, we know being on the job site's important. Time is money. So that's a major improvement. Ease of use, consistent terminology, consistent UI, easy to support. So our CSRs will be able to log in and see what you're seeing if you're having trouble, or guide you or train you through. And another, it seems like a small enhancement, but we're going to allow people to store payment methods so that they can set up a recurring payment. They can use that card for all their permit applications. So those would be some of the major changes, but I think the ability to adapt and flex as technologies change, as regulations change, and have that all within our control, we hope that will drive a bigger difference for everyone in this room.
So we are enrolling people now on this new portal. We're doing that in a very quiet way to build up the scale of it, but if you are interested, please come and talk to Brian Simmers, and he would be your direct access. I'm sure he appreciates me saying that. And another thing that I want to point out is we have so much information, but it doesn't help if we hold on to it. So now, if you are an electrical or gas contractor and you log on to pull out a permit, you will see your safety profile compared to your peers across the province. If you are an asset owner and you're talking about a particular piece of equipment, you will see the performance of that equipment compared to its peer class across the province. And I think that's important for you to know where you stand within the safety system, but also that you can then coach other people around you about how you're going to move up in your performance from the safety system perspective. Now that is very new for us, and we would like your feedback on that as well. You have a question? Yes. I'm sure you can bellow it out. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dave Greer from Greer Electric Canada Corp. One of the questions I have is the security issue with you're looking after somebody's visa or whatever, or banking information. If you have in-house people or people dedicated to that task. Certainly in today's hacker society, that's a big concern.
That's a fantastic question.
Definitely, and I think that's, that's a decision you make. Either you hold that credit card data or you go with a really experienced and very secure partner like Moneris, which is a partnership of all the major banks in Canada, and they actually hold the card. So the system, when you enter it, you're actually entering it into Moneris. We never keep it. What we get back is a token. And when we want to use that token to make a payment, we exchange the token for a payment. And we don't hold any credit card data in our facility. I think it's a further level of security because you're now not providing your card over the phone to someone that is then keying it in, and it's just more direct access. And you say, just put it on my card. It's not going to work for everyone, but I think for the people that, make multiple permit purchases, it could be quite helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's great. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir. Someone behind you. Bob's got a mic behind you.
Thanks, Catherine. My name is Michael Lowe, and I'm the Government Relations Chair with the Okanagan Mainline Real Estate Board. And I don't have a question, but just an observation, and that's that our point of interaction, we represent realtors from Peachland to Revelstoke, and our primary point of interaction with BC Safety Authority is with respect to the listing and purchase of mobile homes. And I'd just like to acknowledge the outstanding cooperation and support that we get from the Kent Street office here in Kelowna and from the safety officers there. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. All right, so I feel like an auctioneer here, going once, going twice. Ah, excellent.
Hi, this is Dave Greer again. The next question I have, I know you've been collecting data and entering it into your system, mainly like, for instance, a particular address with the permits that have been taken out over the last X number of years. Would that be accessible to us sometime in the future, or do we have to still go through you to access information to find out what was taken, what was covered by a permit and what wasn't?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Is this related to addresses where you have done work yourself, or is it just generally when you're looking up an address, has there been a permit at that address? Maybe it's a prospective client.
Yeah, and you're looking at prospective work for a client if you're bidding on the job and then you see a bunch of obvious things that the homeowner has done or who's responsible for that information. And if you can find out there was a permit taken out previously and the last electrician, for instance, that was there didn't bring it up to code, and because he was an electrician, it didn't get inspected, it sort of fell through the cracks. There's just to look it up, and sometimes if you run into, say somebody else has taken a permit out to hook up the service, for example, and then they didn't want to take out the rough wiring part of it. So we got involved with, well, who's responsible for the hookup? Did he hand in all the paperwork? Is all of that stuff passed already? And I can take out a new permit to cover the extra work that's not covered under his permit.
So if it sounds like visibility into what has occurred, by whom, and where things are in the process. I think I would take this as a feature request. There is some information available now. You can type in a site address and get limited publicly available information about a site, but I don't think it would give you all of the information you've suggested there. But I think it's a good and interesting idea that we should explore. So perhaps you and I can chat afterwards and understand it a little bit more.
I understand where Mr. Greer is coming from, and what I've found that you guys used to do was have where we can look onto an address, we could see that there's a permit pulled, it would tell us actually who was the contractor that did the work. Then the Privacy Act came into play, and you guys pulled that from the plug, that we couldn't see it, where it gave us the advantage, not just only who did the work, but we could phone that client or the contractor and say, is Mrs. Jones actually a good person to work with? Or why did you only do this certain portion of the job? Are they a bad payer? Anything of that nature. It's not just that we're trying to peer onto which contractor was doing the work and going, oh, gee whiz, they stole my job or whatever it may be. It's just that it gives us the advantage to find out why all of a sudden that person's not doing the work and is there a problem for it, and it gives us that chance. And you guys did have it, and you guys pulled it. Now, BC or City of Kelowna, if there's a project that's been awarded or a permit for a home renovation, that contractor's online, you can see who's did the work, but we are not allowed in the plumbing side or in the electrical, where we can't see it. So why?
So that's a good question, and you did mention the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which does apply to everything the Safety Authority does. But you mentioned that the City of Kelowna does not apply that in the same way to their permitting process.
Yeah, you can see it.
That's very interesting, so we will follow up, and our team will. So thank you. That's great. That's a great insight. We totally understand the pain point. I think in terms of how there's a transition and a handoff between contractors, or even an understanding of whether that client was a good client or not, that's information that obviously is helpful to you. So thanks for the insight.
Well, we ran across this where there was jobs that were actually, that person's no longer there. I'm sending my technician out to the site. All of a sudden we find out that there's another permit. We see it online because my girls look on my Connect, and then lo and behold, we're now trying to ask this question to the owner, and the owner's going, I'm not going to say anything. Why should I? Do you want to do the work or not? And now our heads are going, well, okay, what are we supposed to do here? And it's kind of a warning system. I ended up finding out from the owner, and that particular contractor went ahead and said, yeah, he's a good payer, everything was fine, we just didn't see eye to eye. End of story. So it gave us that opportunity to still work through that job and get the client what they actually wanted when it was all said and done.
Thank you for that example. Excellent.
Group huddle after.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for those. That was very, very good. Well, so I'll call it the caterpillar in the yard goes to the woman in red over there. So that's the end of the auction. No, I'm just kidding. I've always wanted to do that. So given that there are no further questions, but we will all be here through the buffet lunch, which is coming, which is going to follow the Fortis Awards. Please come up and ask us anything in person if you would like. And I will now turn the meeting back over to George Abbott, our board chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and I'll have to give you some training on being more provocative so that people get angry and throw questions at you with greater frequency and intensity. I'm certain, as a politician, I've trained myself how to do that, and I'm glad to pass that important experience on to you. I hope this morning has been insightful and useful to you. Again, I hope we've inspired a sense of purpose when it comes to prioritizing safety in BC. Thank you for attending today. Again, thank you for hosting us in your beautiful city. Much appreciated. This brings us to the end of the annual public meeting, and I declare the meeting officially adjourned. Happily, though, it's not over yet. Please stay seated. We are going to have a short presentation from one of our very important partners in the built environment, and I'm going to ask Chris to join us here shortly, but I do want to say one of the organizations that has been working very hard to keep the citizens of Kelowna safe during a period of severe flood threat has been Fortis. They've been working very hard, and we're deeply appreciative of their efforts to keep everyone safe in the built environment during a remarkably difficult period. So, speaking today on behalf to introduce the video, please welcome Chris Hyland. Thank you.